And joining me now in the studio to shed more light on the topic of today is a former ambassador of Nigeria to Switzerland and Under Secretary General of the United Nations and head UNAU Peacekeeping Mission in Darfur, Sudan. He is Ambassador Martin Uhomoibhi. It's good to have you on our program tonight, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, sir. Now, Nigeria, seem to have, this increase of internal conflicts, and it is hindering the much-needed peace that is needed in this country. What could be responsible for all this?
Well, it depends on where you are coming from. As a scholar, and perhaps a political philosopher, you will perhaps say that, you go to Thomas Hobbes, he says that in man's state of nature, life was nasty, brutish, and short. That's how Thomas Hobbes, the philosopher, described human beings in it. So what is going on in Nigeria, for example, is not limited to Nigeria. The nature of man, by nature, man's life, according to Thomas Hobbes, is nasty, short, and brutish. And conflict is more or less endemic to human nature. But the tragedy of conflict is that once there is an absence of peace, there can be no stability, there can be no development, there is no growth, and there is no progress. So it is in the interest of man, from the very beginning, to seek for peace.
Okay.
Peace is thoroughly important for man to be able to make progress, for man to be able to develop. Without peace, there is no development. And without development also, there is no peace. So there is a nexus between them. So bringing down this to human society, you see that peace has become really a rare commodity in today's contemporary world, almost everywhere in the world. So the challenge has come up, and why has that challenge become critical at this time? I think that's a very important matter to discuss and to debate.
Okay. Now let's talk about the day, talking about the International Day of United Nations Peacekeepers. It's a day, to consolidate men and women who have served. Now, how can they be honored, while still alive?
Well, you can honor them by working to make sure that peace becomes a rare event, a rare incident in today's world. That's the best honor you can give them, because peacekeeping that the UN is celebrating today came out, it wasn't part of the UN Charter in 1946, the San Francisco Charter that created the United Nations. It was not there, peacekeeping was not there. But peacekeeping evolved or emerged because there was need, when there is conflict, to look for a way to bring about peace. So to navigate conflict and bring about peace, that was how peacekeeping came. Okay. So it's actually chapter 6.5 of the UN Charter, the San Francisco Charter of 1945 that created the United Nations. So how can we make sure that peace now exists? Peace comes out when human beings are greedy and selfish. And people think that because of what they have, they can make profit out of peace, out of absence of, peace, crisis and conflict. So we must look for peace in our own best interest. We must look for peace for the survival of man. We must look for peace in order to achieve development and prosperity. Peace is absolutely important in life, and nobody can do anything without the presence of peace. So we celebrate peace today, and we thank God that this is a mantra for the United Nations and for the entire community. And I must add, not whether the question is really relevant or not, that Nigeria is one of the key global peacekeepers. Indeed, on this continent of Africa, Nigeria is actually #1. Globally, perhaps it's #5. All over the world that the United Nations has been involved, Nigeria has been there. And so we must celebrate our country, Nigeria, for playing such a key and dominant role in global peacekeeping. And look at what we did in the 90s. How Nigeria projected its power by going to Liberia and Sierra Leone at the same time, simultaneously, and restoring peace to those two troubled West African countries. So that when people criticize Nigeria and say that, oh, godfatherism, certainly not. It is not godfatherism policy on our part. It is because we're a peace-loving nation, we're a peacekeeping nation, and we're very proud of that symbol about Nigeria, that quality of Nigeria, and we must sustain it. And the best way to do that is to ensure that we ourselves do not fall victims to conflicts. And that is where cultivating the youth and educating the youth on peace.
Okay, and that will take me to my next question. Talking about the theme, for this year's celebration, it is the road to a lasting peace, leveraging the power of youth for peace and security. Now tell us, what role can youth, play in entrenching peace here in Nigeria? Let's domesticate it.
First of all, the secret of peace globally is justice and equity. Those two things. And then for a country like ours, where nearly 60% or 70% of our population are youths, you have to cultivate them, you have to educate them, you have to bring them up to recognize the value of peace and to treasure peace. Get them involved in what goes on in this country on the basis of equity and justice. And our youths are incredible, creative, resourceful people. We must mobilize them and stop stigmatizing them, because it depends on how you bring them up and how you rear them and how you acculturize them. So it is important that we place confidence in them. It is important that you allow them to demonstrate and to express themselves, both in governance, in economy, and in everything. They must be included in what goes on in this country for them to feel relevant and to become the major stakeholders in our nation's growth and development that they really are.
Okay. Now, we all know that at this time, the COVID-19 pandemic, have continued to ravage countries. How has the pandemic affected peacekeeping?
Well, I don't want to hold the view here, but in our country, we've been very blessed and very privileged. We've responded scientifically to the COVID crisis, but we've been blessed by God to not to be one of the greatest sufferers of the pandemic itself. So, in a way, COVID has put everyone back in his own room or wherever. We are not as exposed, or we don't go out to do things the way we normally should, but that should not be a hindrance to us. We must survive. We are surviving COVID thanks to the policy of government, but also thank God for what God is doing for our country, Nigeria. At this time, many people had predicted that our soils will be littered with corpses of following COVID, but that has not happened. And that is because God, I believe, is in charge of our country. And we are also taking appropriate medical steps to ensure that that does not happen. So we must move forward. We must build on what God has blessed us with, on what our country has blessed us with. We must learn to be creative, we must learn to be resourceful, and we must learn to be generous in offering of our talents in whatever way these are needed to make sure that our country grows in peace, security, and stability.
Okay. Now, you said earlier that Nigeria has done well in terms of peacekeeping, and that we must, look for peace. But we all know that Nigeria, has had series of insecurity. At this time, what is the right way to handle the situation?
What are we doing now that needs to change? We are doing things now because our history has not always been like this. It means that something is happening around that we are not taking note of. So what are we doing now that is wrong? And let us change our way, because you cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. So we must, as I said, equity and justice are fundamental for peace. Inclusivity. Our youths must be put on board. Everybody in this country is blessed. 327 ethnic nationalities, over 500 languages. I don't know of any other country in modern history with such complexity and complicatedness that is still one piece. Nigeria is one. So we must continue to do right things. We must continue to build on those natural things that we are, the Nigerian DNA. We are an inclusive people. We're a peace-loving people. We're a caring people. We're a giving and sharing people. We are not selfish people. That's who we are. God has made us as Nigerians. And all of our history as a nation has been built on inclusivity, getting everybody involved in whatever we are doing and making all of us stakeholders. Because no one Nigerian is greater than another. So I believe that if we do the right things, God will bless this country. We'll continue to bless this country, and our country will continue to make the progress that it deserves to make.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, before I let you go, as we celebrate this day, what words of encouragement do you have for officers who are out there, in peacekeeping? Our
soldiers are just great. God bless them. Nigeria has demonstrated this capacity from independence to today. The first commander of the UN peacekeeping force in DRC was a Nigerian. A crop of our leaders all served in the Congo. And that has been consistent. In 1964, our police forces restored stability to old Tanganyika. There is no area of conflict in this continent that Nigeria has not been involved with. Liberia and Sierra Leone was the most dramatic, where for the first time, a third world country projects military power 1,000 kilometers away from its shores to stabilize two countries and hand over those countries to the United Nations. It's unprecedented in the United Nations history of 75 years. No country has done it. And that is part of the jealousy that this great country has called Nigeria. So let us learn to value ourselves. Let us learn to sing our own praises. Let us be affirmative in narrating our story and not be pessimistic and self-defeatist. We are a blessed people. We are a hard-working nation. We are a resourceful nation, and that we must keep our flag flying all the time.
Thank you so very much, Ambassador Martin Uhomoibhi. It's been a pleasure, indeed having you on Sunday Magazine today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.